With his signature on the spending bill also came Obama's first signing statement, a presidential declaration freeing him from following some of the bill's contents.
I believe in the Constitution and I will obey the Constitution of the United States. We're not going to use signing statements as a way of doing an end run around Congress. All right?
He also promised that he would call on Congress to take at least 5 days to read new legislation before it was voted on.
When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it, so that you know what your government's doing.
But from his first day in power, he has aggressively pressured Congress to quickly pass bills before lawmakers and the public even have a chance to see them.
Will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Madam Speaker, in order to try to figure out what we're doing, how much damage to the country, I tried to get a copy of the bill. We have out here on the table 2454 that has 1,090 pages in it, but I've understood since debate in here that there's another 300 pages that were added in the middle of the night. My inquiry is, how do I get a copy of the other 300 pages that people on here or here on the floor hadn't had a chance to read or see? Where do we get that before we cram this down on the American people?
Is there somewhere physically in the House of Representatives a copy of what we're voting on?
The gentleman has not stated a parliamentary inquiry that the chair can answer.
Mr. Speaker, I have to say that I am outraged. Here we are getting ready to vote on a piece of legislation, and we haven't even seen 300 pieces of this legislation. No one can even find the bill or even knows where it's at.
Obama swore that he would never put lobbyists or donors in his administration.
Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner appointed Mark Patterson, and this is a former top lobbyist for Goldman Sachs, as his chief of staff. And then last week there was a lot of buzz over William Lynn. He was appointed to the #2 position at the Defense Department. William Lynn, also a former top lobbyist for Raytheon, which is one of the 5 largest defense contractors.
He has now broken all previous records by cramming his administration full of contributors and lobbyists who openly write legislation being proposed by the White House. There's a good reason Obama doesn't want to give the people or Congress any time to read the bills.
I'm still needing a copy of the other 300 mysterious pages that we don't get to see here.
Oh, that wasn't enough. Here we are with 1,100 pages. 1,100 pages not one member of this body has read. Not one. There may be some staffer over in the Appropriations Committee that read all of this last night. I don't know how you could read 1,100 pages between midnight and now. Not one member's read this. What happened to the promise that we're going to let the American people see what's in this bill for 48 hours? But nope, we don't have time to do that.
What the hell is going on?
What if Rick Santorum is being embraced by voters who want small government, even though Senator Santorum voted for the Patriot Act, for an expansion of Medicare, and for raising the debt ceiling by trillions of dollars? What if Mitt Romney is being embraced by voters who want anyone but Barack Obama, but they don't realize that Mitt Romney might as well be Barack Obama on everything from warfare to welfare? What if Ron Paul is being ignored by the media, not because, as it claims, he's unappealing or unelectable, but because he doesn't fit into the pre-manufactured public opinion mold used by the establishment to pigeonhole the electorate and create the so-called narrative that drives media coverage of elections?
We have Lisa, Linda.
Apologies, we have lost our signal from the Ron Paul event, and we will work very hard to get that back. And we are also awaiting the other candidates.
Well, I think it would be even more dangerous to start nitpicking wars with other countries. Someone like Iran, Israel is more than capable of.
All right, we just lost our connection, unfortunately, with Dana. Dana, stand by. If you can hear me, we're going to get back.
But you also have to look to the people. How many people ask their congressman, I want you to vote for this, I want you to vote for this?
We're having some difficulty with our live coverage of Congressman Ron Paul at the State Fair in Iowa. We'll continue to listen in.
I was mentioned one time in all the discussion of the debate after it was over. Right. Now, you might argue I didn't win, or some people argue that I did.
You had the juice.
But it deserved more than one mention on all the stations. Somebody went and added these all up.
Thank you, Congressman.
So what's going on here? You're in this media business. I'd like to know exactly how that comes about.
Before we move on, you want in on this issue? They want you in on this issue. Would you like in on this issue?
But John, once again, it's a medical subject, and I'm a doctor, you know.
Feel Obamacare?
Thank you. I thought maybe you were prejudiced against doctors and a doctor that practiced medicine in the military or something.
Let the debate begin, and Governor Romney, will begin with you. We just saw 200,000 new jobs finally turning around. Are you with those optimists?
I'm an optimist, and I certainly hope it turns around. We have millions.
Senator Santorum. Senator Santorum.
Someone who can paint a positive vision for this country. Someone who
on this discussion, because Mr. Speaker, a group supporting you
Well, I haven't seen the film, but
it's a part of the people of this nation to have a conversation about one's record, and Governor Romney can say whatever he wishes.
Lobbyist, a Washington insider with a record of betrayal. You also call him corrupt in that ad.
It was a quote. Somebody did make a survey, and I think he came out as one of the top corrupt individuals because he took so much money from the lobbyists. But really what the whole... There it goes again.
They caught you not telling the truth, Ron.
But 5 times, so he is a big government person. And we as Republicans know something about right to work. He supports...
Congressman Paul, you're a physician. You're 76 years old. You would be the oldest president of the United States if you were elected. Are you prepared to release your medical records so voters out there know what your health is?
Obviously, because it's about 1 page, if even that long. But I'm willing to challenge any of these gentlemen up here to a 25-mile bike ride any time of the day in the heat of Texas. And
on the U.S. government, they should stay out of our personal lives, and we should assume that responsibility for ourselves.
Minorities are punished unfairly in the war on drugs. For instance, blacks make up 14% of those who use drugs, yet 36% of those arrested are blacks, and it ends up that 63% of those who finally end up in prison are blacks. This has to change. We don't have to have more courts and more prisons. We need to repeal the whole war on drugs. It isn't working. We have already spent over $400 billion since the early 70s, and it's a wasted money. Prohibition didn't work. Prohibition on drugs doesn't work. So we need to come to our senses, and absolutely, it's a disease. We don't treat alcoholics like this. This is a disease, and we should orient ourselves to this. That is one way you could have equal justice under the law.
Now is body language expert Tanya Ryman. Does Ron Paul really believe this stuff? He does a lot of this and a lot of this, and does he believe in it?
He is 100% genuine.
Can I chop them up and sew them into one person?
Oh yes, please.
I've heard that
Please
before.
do. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Oh my God.
I like Ron Paul. I really do. I really do. I really like Ron Paul. The guy is intellectually consistent.
Yes, he is.
He absolutely. He says the same thing, you know, Monday that he said on Sunday. He doesn't change with the winds.
Yeah.
That's admirable, I think.
So without sucking up to this audience, talk about you are a South Carolina
bathed
guy.
in the spotlight of being the front runner for like 2 months each. Bachmann, Perry, Kaine, perhaps Ron Paul will now get his shot as the media front runner.
Ron Paul has no chance of being elected.
Well, his poll numbers actually have been consistent, not mercurial, and he's got no chance. You're giving everyone else a chance. And for God's sake, a woman who never entered the race, Sarah Palin, got more heat from the media.
If you get video of Sarah Palin or get a soundbite from her, bring that back to us. You can hold the Ron Paul stuff.
The thought of covering him amuses me.
In this race, at least for now, of Romney, Perry, and Bachmann.
I mean, I think that's fair to say.
Really fair to say? You're not forgetting, I don't know, anyone, say an ideologically consistent 12-term congressman who came within less than 200 votes of winning the straw poll? Isn't anyone going to give that gentleman a little love?
There's a top tier now of Bachmann and Perry and Romney, and, you know, we haven't mentioned, and we should.
Thank you.
We haven't mentioned, and we should, Rick Santorum, who did really surprisingly well for the amount of money and resources he had.
Mitt Romney, who continues to be the front runner, but we have Rick Perry as well, and now Michelle Bachmann. Let's not count out Jon Huntsman, though.
What? Jon Huntsman? Huntsman got 69 votes. If all of Jon Huntsman's supporters met at the same Ames, Iowa Quiznos, the fire marshal would say, yeah, that's fine, no problem. And by the way, this pretending Ron Paul doesn't exist for some reason has been going on for weeks.
A new Gallup survey showing Rick Perry running second to Mitt Romney, knocking down Iowa favorite Michelle Bachmann to fourth.
Behind who? Fourth behind who? How did Libertarian Ron Paul become the 13th floor in a hotel? Why? What's wrong with... He is Tea Party patient zero. All that small government grassroots business, he planted that grass. These other folks, they're just moral majorities in a tri-cornered hat. Ron Paul's the real deal. The Republican debate was an hour and a half, but CBS only aired 1 hour of it so that they could still bring you, the viewer, a fresh NCIS rerun. Probably because CBS wanted people to learn something about how the government can work. But the first hour still provided an opportunity to follow some compelling storylines. Would Newt Gingrich's recent poll surge continue? Does me saying poll surge make you think of her? If you bet Ron Paul and the over was 90 seconds of speaking time, would you lose that bet? The answer, yes, yes, and EPA. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, you sort of assume maybe some of this was happening because I think like 90 seconds was about the amount of time that the Ron Paul camp had to respond also in talks. There's not a lot of time for these guys.
We have a top tier. It is Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and Michelle Bachmann.
We have a new top tier, and it's Perry, Mitt Romney, and Bachmann. There's now a top tier, at least for now, of Romney, Perry, and Bachmann.
Poll. Romney leads New Hampshire. Huntsman third, Perry fourth. Now, do they know how to count? Why would they omit saying who was in second?
Well, you know why? Ron Paul.
What about Ron Paul? He only spoke a total of 89 seconds in last night's debate. So why give him short shrift? He polls very well. He usually wins, you know, most of the straw polls, or he's very high on the straw polls. So what gives you? He only spoke for 89 seconds.
You know, I'm not really sure what's to give, actually, why he hasn't had an opportunity to really speak during these debates more than he has. You're right. He's shown to be really in touch with the voters. They seem to really like some of his views, and it shows whenever the straw polls are being held. Hey, look. The electorate is undecided. We should all get the same number.
But is there a media bias against him? Just from the media's point of view, isn't he good for the media because he challenges Republican orthodoxy and causes debate and generates and stimulates the discussion about ideas that the other Republicans don't want to talk about?
Well, that's right. It's because he is such an extraordinary candidate that the mainstream media doesn't pay attention. Every time Ron Paul comes out, attracts huge crowds, gets numbers that are suspicious in the polls to say this could be your Republican nominee, the mainstream media that refuse to acknowledge. It's like he's standing in front of them and they say, I don't believe it. Don't believe it. I'm going to rub my eyes and see if I can. Oh, he's still there. Yeah.
The key issue is the economy.
Right.
No one has been stronger on what has caused these problems. No one has been more consistent. No one has done more to bring the Federal Reserve and money printing and central planning of economic activity into focus than Ron Paul.
This is all Ron Paul. This is all.
And Ron Paul's going to be joining us. I'm sorry, I meant Rick Santorum will be here. I apologize. Oh, poor Ron. Quite different reactions on that. How are things going? Are you feeling the love from the people?
Oh, all the time. Especially the media. They really love me. Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think it's two things. I think one is some people don't want to hear the message because it's a threat to them, because I'm a threat to the establishment. Some, though, just flat out, they don't understand what freedom is all about.
Is Ron Paul being ignored by the media? 97% of you said yes, he is. 3% said no.
Ron Paul makes a lot of sense, and more people ought to listen to him. One candidate who has been largely ignored by the mainstream media. Shame on us. He deserves more attention from us than he's getting.
Congressman, your libertarian views are certainly somewhat unconventional, but they have picked up growing support in this race.
I'm fascinated with your word unconventional. Isn't it strange that we can apply that term to freedom and liberty and the Constitution, limited government is a balanced budget? You're proposing this unconventional idea of government.
It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars.
In 2012, there was only one presidential candidate who predicted the economic collapse, who has never voted to raise your taxes, and who will bring our troops home. He has been right for decades.
This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution. We've only had an income tax since 1913. But if you want a welfare state, and if you want to police the world and pay for the defense of Japan and Germany, send foreign aid to the Soviet Union, you not only need the income tax, you need the Federal Reserve to print up the money when the deficit is accumulated. So we think the government should be much smaller.
During the next decade, the American people will become poorer and less free, while they become more dependent on the government for economic security. This country is in the middle of a recession for a lot of people. Michigan knows about it. Poor people know about it. The middle class knows about it. Wall Street doesn't know about it. Washington, D.C. doesn't know about it. But it's because of the monetary system and the excessive spending.
There's no joke. He is America's last true statesman, and he has actually been saying the same thing for the past 30 years about what our federal government needs to do to serve the people. That is, namely, follow the Constitution.
The Federal Reserve credit created during the last 8 months has not stimulated economic growth in technology or the industrial section. But a lot of it ended up in the expanding real estate bubble. This too will burst, as all bubbles do.
How could it be that you knew this on the banking committee in 2003 and nobody else did until after the collapse?
It really says a lot that the politically aware people in the military, those that are paying attention and engaged in the political process, are supporting someone who advocates an immediate withdrawal.
Our campaign got more money from the troops than all the other candidates put together.
I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I wanted to tell you why I support Ron Paul for president. It means a lot to me as a veteran to know that he's served his country in uniform and made the sacrifices that other veterans have made in the past.
My name is Eric Knowles. I'm an Air Force veteran.
My name is Jonathan Schaefer. I spent 6 years in the Navy.
Hello, my name is Tony Morick. I served in the Army for 8 years.
I'm Al Schleugel. I'm an 8-year Air Force veteran. Hi, my name is John Jones, and I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. There's great reason to have hope for Ron Paul's candidacy, as he's the only veteran in the Republican primary right now. The only representative in Congress that takes his oath to the Constitution and the rule of law seriously.
You sign up for the military, and you sign the dotted line. You're there to defend America and the Constitution, and Ron Paul is the only person that's been doing that for a while now.
I support Ron Paul because I believe he's the only candidate with the fortitude to actually stand by the Constitution.
I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and he is the only elected representative that actually takes his oath seriously. I think he's dead on when he talks about the Federal Reserve System. It's only because the government is able to print money to pay for the war that we're able to stay at war. And that act of printing money makes us all poorer.
It means a lot to go out and defend our country and make those sacrifices, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. We only have those rights that we are willing to defend.
It's been going on and on because we just plain don't mind our own business. That's our problem. During the last campaign, I knew what was happening. You know, they mocked me for my foreign policy and they laughed at my monetary policy. No more.
President Obama has 42% of voter support and Representative Ron Paul, 41%. Wow.
I see a fantastic movement at the grassroots.
This man brings together people of all races, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all political affiliations, because freedom is truth and truth is power, and we can live and be free in this country if we believe we can.
What's appealing about him overall is that he is intellectually honest and that he obviously has a lot of integrity.
Ron Paul is at least not a pander, he's sincere.
The reason people are worked up about Ron Paul is because they sense that he's genuine, that he's not a sellout, that he's not taking money to espouse certain positions like 99% of other politicians.
The one guy in the field, agree with him or don't agree with him, who doesn't go out of his way to regurgitate talking points or change what he believes to fit the audience he's in front of.
You served, as you said, 20 years in Congress, but you're not going to take a congressional pension.
Right.
As an obstetrician, you never took Medicare or Medicaid for your patients.
Never.
I'm personally endorsing Ron Paul for President of the United States for 2012. Because a lot of stuff he says makes perfect sense.
Mainstream is moving in the direction that I have been talking about for a long time.
And everything he has said has been truth. And a lot of stuff Obama has said has been lies.
I will promise you this, that if we have not gotten our troops out by the time I am president, it is the first thing I will do. I will get our troops home. We will bring an end to this war. You can take that to the bank.
So does that mean you can tell us today that you will not change the 16-month timetable?
I like Ron Paul. I think he's a cut from a different cloth than the rest of those people who are, of course, selling their souls to the corporate interests who back them.
I believe that abortion should be safe and legal in this country.
I will preserve and protect a woman's right to choose, and am devoted and dedicated to honoring my word in that regard.
I will be a pro-life president.
There's something else that bothers people. You were leading the charge to push Bill Clinton from office for lying about an affair. At the very same time that you were leading that charge, you were having an affair. Isn't that hypocrisy?
They represent the status quo. And this is what excites so many people now. They're sick of the status quo.
Suddenly, a lot of people who love the country and haven't voted precisely because they feel like it would be an insult to the great history of this country to vote for one or the other criminal are so excited at the prospect that, wait a minute, maybe the country can be saved after all.
I do think you should value people who speak from the heart and who tell the truth. And you should also value people who honor the vision of your founders and respect the most sublime constitution devised by human intelligence.
We want an America full of principled people, not people who say one thing and do something else.
Ron Paul has been consistent for more than 30 years, and he's been absolutely right about the most important issues facing this country today, which means that when he's elected, we can trust that he'll actually do what he says he's going to do, and that what he does is actually going to work.
This country is in a revolution. They're sick and tired of what they're getting, and I happen to be lucky enough to be part of it. Don't get involved in these wars, just bring our troops home.
There is absolutely never a reason to give up 1 ounce of freedom for the sake of security. It won't work.
There is no authority in the Constitution authorizing a central bank, which means there should be no Federal Reserve System. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.